Hey, kia ora. Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling day. I am super excited today. Had an awesome day at Networking Riches, but the reason I am super excited is because of our guest tonight. I have the amazing Deborah Thorne on tonight, who is the international diva. Oh my gosh, you guys are in for a treat. She has a phenomenal story to share with us this evening. And so, Deborah, welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast, where we help.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And, I agree. We had an awesome day. And I will say to your audience, if you didn't attend Networking Riches today, you should have. And so Helen will tell you how you can get in for tomorrow. It's been absolutely amazing. Amazing.
Oh, that's really, I always tell them, have to network. Yes. That's it, have-to-network.com with the number 2, not the TO. Okay. But anyway, so if you haven't read the information that is underneath the picture when we scheduled this, Deborah Thorne is the Information Diva. She is an award-winning, internationally known author, coach, trainer, speaker, and the proud host of the Leverage Conference for speakers, authors, and entrepreneurs in its 4th year and happening November 10 through 12 of 2022. She is a connector, an opportunity creator. She connects people to people and people to opportunities. And I have to tell you, if you have never been to a Leverage Conference, you need to go. It is an incredible, even though it's done virtually, it is an incredible 3 days. Incredible 3-day event. You get to meet so many amazing people. You get to hear from speakers and authors and entrepreneurs, and it is such an inspiring conference to go to, and I got to attend for the first time last year. Amazing! I am like on fire, ready for this year.
We're ready to have you, because what she failed to say to you is that she is our official announcer, and we're like excited. And the reason you were struggling with the days is we now have 3 bonus opportunities coming up, and not the full days, but things for people to do. So it's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome. But Deborah, we're not talking about the Leverage Conference tonight, because we're going to take a little shift. We're going to take a little journey into the Before the Dirt Nap genealogy tonight. And Deborah has this incredible story about her grandfather. And so I can't wait for you guys to hear this story, because it is just amazing what is possible. And that's what I want you to grab. You want to live your best life now. This is part of what you need to do to live your best life now. So Deborah, tell us about your grandfather.
Okay, so let me put all this in perspective, you guys. As the Information Diva, I work for 2 things. I work for luxury and legacy. Luxury for me is taking a couple of cruises a year, being able to drive a relatively new car, and that's pretty much it. I'm a simple girl that'll work. But the legacy is important to me. Legacy for me means to provide for my grandson who has autism, to be sure he always has the things that he needs. And so I want to tell you where I learned this lesson. And you got to pay attention to like the numbers and kind of follow me. So my mother died 3 years ago, 17 days shy of being 94 years old. So she had lived a full life. There were 4 generations of us alive at that time, and that was awesome. Her father died when she was 5 years old. So, you guys start going back and figuring out how many years ago he died. Okay. We were playing with the math earlier and I was struggling. But he made an investment that my mother continued to get paid on until her death. And now, as her child, my brother, sister, and I get paid on this investment. And you say, oh, that's kind of nice, but really understand this. My mother is from the South, and she was born in the South at a time when little Black girls did not have birth certificates. My mother, although a registered nurse, did not have a birth certificate. And her father, being a Black man in the South, a sharecropper with a 3rd grade education, made an investment. I think the original investment was a parcel of land, actually, because as a child, I can remember them selling timber off the land. And that was how the investment showed up, how the dividends showed up. They were approached to sell so many trees, and they would get paid for that. And then as they went on, I know there came a time when my mother made a decision to sell the property itself. So the trees are gone, the property is now gone. However, she kept the mineral rights to the place. And so now that's what the payment is. That's what the dividends are, mineral rights. And I have seen my mother, excuse me, get, and these were during the years I was taking care of her business so I could really see it. There were times where she got as little as $250 a month. But I also saw her get $30,000 at one time. So
Wow.
this is a serious investment that has continued. And so now here we are, you know, I'm the grandchild, and I always like to say, I'm level 7.1. I'm 71 years old. And my grandfather put in place something that could continue to pay me now and that will pay my grandson if I leave it in place, my son and then my grandson. And for a Black man from the South with a third grade education, to me, that is absolutely phenomenal. Those of us who are believers know that scripture says if you don't provide for your family, you're worse than an infidel. So we like to think in terms of, oh, I would if I was rich. If I was rich, I'd leave him $1 million. I would do this, that, and the other. But it has to do with what you have now. What are you doing that will make a legacy piece for it? There's something else that Helen and I are involved in. And because the Information Diva has three things she doesn't do. I do not tell people what to do with their money. I do not tell people what to put in their bodies. And I have nothing to do with anything CBD. That's my personal opinion. I got reasons for that. However, I am doing a hedge against inflation and as part of the legacy for my grandson. So when all this is over, please ask Helen about her silver business, okay? Because I too am involved, but I want you to understand, and she doesn't mind telling you what to do with your money. But really and truly, I'm not telling you what you do with your money. I'm telling you to do something, that there needs to be hedges against inflation. There needs to be hedges against some of the craziness we've seen in the United States as far as money is concerned and what's going to go forward. And we've chosen to deal with it in silver. But talk to Helen about it. She's here every day. You guys know where to find her, and she's got the information. And just know that, I agreed. It's like I high fived on that. But once again, coming from the place of that granddaughter who never met her grandfather, because remember, he died when my mother was 5. And so for this man to have thought enough to put something aside on a sharecropper's pay in the South that his grandchildren will, continue, and now it's great grandchildren will get paid off of it. So
That
that's
is,
the story.
I love that story. I love hearing stories like this. And I was trying to do the math. So your mum was 94 when she passed, or almost 94 when she
Yeah,
passed.
almost
Your dad
94.
passed when she was 5, and she
Right.
passed 3 years ago.
Right.
So doing the math in my head, 94 plus 3,
Okay.
that's 97,
Uh-huh.
minus 5, so that was 92 years ago. That's almost 100 years ago when that was done. That is
Absolutely.
awesome. And like
Okay.
you said, it's coming from a place in the South,
A
97
Black
years
man in the
ago,
South
back
with
then
a
in the South
third
almost
grade
100 years
education.
ago. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's unheard of them doing this thing with the legacies and that is just, it makes my skin tingle. And
Well, what it makes me wonder is how many others did that or similar, and we don't talk about it because it was just recently that it all hit me. I knew my mother was receiving this, and that was nice that her father did it, blah blah blah. But when you stop and think about it, you go, wait a minute, wait. Think about what was going on at that time. Think about how long ago that was. Think about what has happened as a result. And so that's where it becomes this phenomenal story that I want to continue to tell, that I want to fix it up. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with my portion of the legacy. All kind of ideas come up. I talked to my siblings about putting together a fund so that children in our family, when they went to school, that all their school books would be paid for out of that fund, that they knew that that was there. And they're kind of, but the good thing is that we each have our own piece of the legacy. So I'm going to do something with my piece. I just don't know what it is yet.
It will come to you when it's time.
When it's the proper time.
When it's
Absolutely.
the proper time, it will be revealed. It always,
Absolutely.
things happen for a reason. People find their stride later in life. People find their stride early in life. It's all part of some humongous plan that we just play a very, 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 very
Yes.
tiny than a dot of a pencil in.
Well, and my big thing is, if my heart is in the right place and God knows what I want to have happen and how I want to continue to honor my grandfather, the right way will present itself. And I'll know it and go, okay, that's what we do. This is how we continue to honor him.
Yeah. I always go back to, we were talking the other day, I was on a call and we were talking about Susan Boyle from the Britain's Got Talent when she won it those few years ago, and about how that changed her life. I mean, she's a woman that was in her 50s, I think she was, if I remember correctly.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
And people go, well, why did she wait so long in life? It was not her time. She was not ready to be the star that she became, and the world was not ready for her. When everything comes into alignment, that's when the magic happens.
Absolutely.
And so, I always remember seeing on Oprah one time, there was a gentleman there. He was 94 years old and he had just learned to read.
Okay.
He was 94 years old, and the book he learned to read from was the Bible. And I always say, it's never ever too late to learn.
Absolutely.
It's never too late, and it's never too late for your star to shine. So,
well, absolutely. And when we're talking legacy, what I really don't want to hear people say is, "Oh, I don't have anything to leave." I can't. Well, no, you cannot leave what the billionaires are leaving to their kids, but you can leave the idea of legacy. That's what my grandfather did. He left me with the idea of what a legacy really is, and you can start it as something small.
Absolutely.
We have a program. Watch this. We have a program that you can do it for $30. Okay, $30 a month to set this legacy for your family, so that your grandkids are talking about what you did 90, however many years ago. Helen Kimball, we're supposed
92. 92 of your grandfather.
Yeah, 100 years ago. So there.
Yeah. But what I like about this too is that your legacy doesn't have to be something tangible. It could even be your story.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And I know that you are a huge component about people, like you and me. That's one of the things that we have in total alignment with each other. We are always about people telling their stories and leaving their stories, because that is part of who you are. It's part of who those come after you are. So like, your great, great, great grandchildren, if you leave your story today, they're going to be able to read what it was like to go through the global pause we've just gone through the last 2.5 years or 3 years, whatever it is. So they're going to be able to read, if you've journaled that, they're going to be able to read what you went through and what it was like for them. Who knows? History may be repeating itself at that point in time. We had the Spanish flu back at the beginning of the 1900s.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the things, that in telling stories, I always encourage people to write their books. Everybody should be writing a book and telling it from your perspective, because history is told by the person who writes the book. All of us have witnessed this. Some very strange things have happened in the last several years. And every single person has a different take on what happened and what it means. How about putting it in a book form so that, once again, talking about the legacy, your great grandchildren, when they're reading about it in history, and they go, no, that's not what my great grandmother said. Here's the book she wrote, and she said this was going on. Because I tell you, all of us get to tell the truth the way that we understand it. And our understanding is so very different. I believe that there's space for everybody's understanding. Some of them might go like, really? What? You know what? Your truth, I can't argue with it. But we all need to be telling those stories. That becomes part of our legacy. Maybe we'll do a whole thing on all the things that could be listed as your legacy. Because that
would be an awesome episode. So you've now just committed to coming back again, which is fine with me.
What are the things that people can do? Well, you know what? We're starting it. Because what are the gifts? If now is the time to talk about gifts for your audience?
Sure.
Okay. So what I'm giving away is 30 ways to make money while you sleep. Okay. And if you look at the bottom, scrolling across, it tells you it's a bit.ly a site you go to get it, and you can download it. But what's really important is those are ways to create content,
Mm-hmm.
and content lasts. Okay. So maybe you don't want to write a book. Maybe you want to read the story or tell the story or do a podcast of the story or record the story. There are many ways to do the content, and each one of them put a price tag on it. Okay. That's how we make money while we sleep. So I've listed 30 ways that you might take advantage of that. And I want that for everybody who's interested and think in terms of it as legacy. This is how you're going to leave your legacy.
That's awesome. And we've got a comment that's come in, but unfortunately, because they didn't give StreamYard permission to print names, all I've got is Facebook user, but they say, I better start my legacy. Thank you, Helen Brahms and the diva, Deborah Thorne.
Yes.
We've inspired somebody already. Yay.
And that's important. That's important.
Congratulations on
you where I'm inspired. You know, I have the thing that I want to do for my grandson, but as would come to us, and you say it comes at the right time, all these 30 ways are things that I do. I need to be creating a legacy piece for that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because again, how we tell our story, that's for my children's children's children. Okay. Of course, my grandson said he ain't having no kids. So this may be the end of a line. But he said, not getting married, not having kids. Okay. And that's a choice too. But I want to put it out there. Yeah.
Yeah. He said that, yeah, he said it's Casey. So awesome. And I mean, he just had a very full day with Networking Riches. Okay. And for him to be on here. So thank you, Casey, for tuning in and watching. But, you know, when you're telling your story, you don't have to sit and write it with a pen and paper. You could record it and have somebody type it up for you, have somebody transcribe it. You could do video recording so they can see your facial expressions as you're telling the story in the animation. And that was one thing that Brad always said for me was I had to be in front of a camera or I had to be on stage, because he said, you just talking on a radio or something, he said, that ain't going to work. That was my husband.
People need to
Casey's told me the same thing many times as well. I guess that's why he gave me the challenge.
Yeah, and you're doing that challenge. How many days is it?
Today is day 1,106.
Oh, my goodness.
So 3 years and 10 days.
That in and of itself is a legacy.
Yes, okay. It is. And because most of that is, you know, most of it I did as just like a personal journal.
Right.
So that's legacy that I'm leaving for my grandkids coming behind. But another part of the legacy is being able to go back and visit places that your ancestors came from. Okay. You know, where did your ancestors come from? Why did they leave where they left? You know, what was it that made them go from whatever country it was to whichever country they migrated?
Well, you know, when you're talking to African Americans, we have a real problem with that.
Yes, I totally understand that.
We have, and you know, less people think that we are. I'm being overly sensitive. Let me share a story that happened. This grandson that I love so dearly was in the second grade, and it was around Thanksgiving time. And the teacher sent home a picture of what was supposed to be the pilgrims on a boat, and they were all smiling and sailing to the new country. And the kids were to write a story about what their family's journey to the United States was. And if your parent, if they didn't have information about the United States, the first person that you knew who was here, how did they get from wherever they were to California? And I remember looking at it going, does she not realize she has African-American children in her classroom? So I talked to the principal, who was also Black, and I said, you know, this is a problem for me. I'm not teaching a 7-year-old about the Middle Passage. He will be taught, but not now. You don't get to decide when I tell him of the slavery story. And she says, well, no, Miss Thorne, they're not asking you to do that. Just, you know, when did your family come to California? I said, you mean my mother who wasn't rewarded with birth certificate? Is that who you're talking about? She goes, oh my God. I said, yeah, you guys have to be knowledgeable about this. So me being who I am, and those of you who know me, I sat down and wrote a college level paper, because you know, after all, I am educated, complete with pictures of the shackles and what the boats looked like that came across and all of that. And I submitted it instead of him submitting his paper. And I didn't hear anything. I'm like, okay, that's strange. So that happened in November. All the way to June, we're like a couple of weeks out of school, letting out, I was picking him up from after school care, and I ran face to face with this teacher. And she, with tears in her eyes, Miss Thorne, I am so sorry. I owe you an apology. Lady, what are you talking about? And she doesn't even realize what she said. She said, I just read Robert's paper. Hold up. You had it since November and you're just reading his paper? Well, she was one who didn't want him in her classroom, and we had already had that fight. You don't get to make that decision. And I said, okay. She said, I never thought of it. I said, but you don't have the luxury of not thinking about it. You teach African American children. This is our history. And, I often listen to the people who say, well, can't you get over slavery? No, actually not. We can't get over it. It is a thing that happened. We go beyond it. It doesn't define everything that I do, but it was a period in history. And we got the people now who say, it was an economic decision. Oh, it really was. I agree with you 150%. It was totally economic. Why would you rip people from where they live and have them work for you for free if you didn't want to get rich? Okay, I've got that, but does it make it right? And how do we figure it out as we're, and like you said, if we don't know our history, we're bound to repeat it. So when we see things happening that remind us of that, I'm always like, okay, we need to stop and think, how do we make this better this time around? Because that's reality. And if, they have the whole thing where some parents don't want their kids taught because it is so painful. If you think it's painful for you and your kids, how do you think it feels for me and mine? That's because as a Black mother, I had to choose, it's a very thin line you walk between teaching your children their history and not teaching them hatred. Okay, because the two go hand in hand. And no, we don't hate anybody. It was a sad time in our country. We want to be sure it doesn't happen again. You want to do the things that you need to do to better yourself and all of that. But is the playing field level? No, it's not. Will it ever be level? No, it won't. Accept that and keep it moving. Okay. So, I think we have an opportunity at this time to really make some differences. And that too is part of the legacy of our country. It happened. We don't want those things to happen again. So as a result, we're going to do these things. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
That's awesome. And that's where a lot of the family history stories are going to come in, the legacy that you leave behind, so people can learn from that. Because we don't, we have different perspectives from different people. And every time people talk about, they see the same event, but everybody sees it different. It reminds me of that movie that they did.
You and I talked about it, where they had the people. Something happened in 8 different.
Yeah, there was a guy that was assassinated in front of a crowd,
right?
And they got all these different perspectives, and they started working backwards in the timeline to figure out what had happened and who had and how it had happened. And everybody that they talked to during this film, everybody had a different perspective on it, and so they had to take these different pieces and put them together. And that's what we need to do with our story. Everybody tells their story from their perspective. And somewhere in the middle of all of that is where the real truth lies, because everybody has a different perspective or different thoughts about things. It's like when you have two sides of an argument, the truth is somewhere there in the middle.
Exactly.
One person has their perspective, the other person has their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Casey with specificity.
It is their truth. They're telling what they believe. What is their truth? My truth and your truth are two different things. And somewhere in between is that middle ground of truth. And I was laughing when you were talking about that movie. I remember sitting in the movie theater, actually was on a date. And the first time they rewound it, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Girl, by the time they were like number 6, I'm like, don't you back that movie up again. I was fucking living. Don't you back that movie up again. And I think it was.
But each time they backed it up, it went back a little further.
I know,
and then they played it forward
again. Then I'm not analytical like that. It was working me. Oh, I have to think of what the name of that movie is, because it's one of those things that I was
8 seconds.
Was that what it called? 8 seconds?
I think it was
something.
Yeah, I think it was 8 seconds. Because it was something that all happened within an 8-second window, and everybody had a different perspective of it.
Oh, but
I think that's what it's called.
Every time it backed up, I went, "Oh no, not again! Don't no."
Well, the other one that was sort of 8 seconds. Is that the one?
I don't know. I'll know because I'm going to look it up when we get through. Only you're looking it up now.
I'm looking it up now, girl. I can't wait that long. No, I don't think it was that one.
Yeah,
I'll have to go find it because it was really well done. But I wish I could remember the name of it. Because it shows how people can see the same thing, but everybody sees it differently. And that's the same with our own personal history. We all see it differently.
Absolutely.
We all have different feelings towards our history. We all have different takes on our history. Some people don't want to know their history. Personally, I don't understand that, but that's
I understand it because I'm one of those. I understand.
No, some people just sort of like, I don't even want to know who my parents were. I was adopted. I don't care.
Well,
and I'm
kind of protecting themselves.
Yeah, they could be protecting themselves, and I get that portion of it. But then there's some that's sort of like, oh well, I think we came from this country, but I really don't care where we came from. And I'm just sort of like, genealogy mind me are going, what? You can have a very rich history.
My feeling about it, just that you have another perspective, is that if I wasn't told the information, going digging it up could be detrimental. And people, in another time, another place, they kept all kinds of secrets. And I personally believe that secrets kill. And so therefore, if you thought it was supposed to be kept a secret, I'm going to honor you by doing that. I just don't want to know. I don't want to be in on keeping the secret. I just let it go. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the struggles that I have as a genealogist, is that when I'm researching families, and I have had this happen, where there's been something that's come up and I'm like a dilemma, like, do I tell them? Do I not tell them? And then I have to kind of approach it in a roundabout sort of way to see what their reaction would be to the news. And then I have to make the tough decision, yes, move ahead, or no, I'm just going to keep that and let them believe what they want to believe.
Yeah, see, I don't want to have to do yeah. Ooh. No, thank you.
And then there's other ones that are sort of like, what? Oh my gosh, really? What else?
No, well, I read a book some years ago. What's it called? The Black of the Berry. And it was about a family where in the Black community, some families, colorism is a real thing. And this woman who, if we look at her, she looks pretty fair-skinned, but her family left her because she was the darkest one of them as they moved to California to pass as white. Okay. And so all of her family moves to California to pass as white. She's left in the South. Fast forward, and this was not that long ago because these people are living. Now, her parents were gone, but she had living relatives, and she came to California and found some of them. And just as people would, some embraced it, and they were like, oh, wow, some new family members. And other members of her family denounced it. Oh, no, they were white, and you were going to tell them that they had Black membership in their family. And I thought, oh, my goodness. So for me, as a Black woman, that explains something, because I've seen some people, and I'm looking at them in their features, and they're living as white people, which is their right. But you're not white, sweetie. As a matter of fact, no, well, you and I'll talk offline, but I want to tell you about some of the people that are leading some of the other opposition. Y'all better do some DNA tests that I'm trying to tell you. Let me just do it that way, and I won't call names. There are people leaving that led with the insurrection and all that kind of stuff, and they were leaders for a side that I think wasn't the right side for me personally. And a couple of those leaders, I looked at, I said, you guys don't know that these people are Black? And clearly they don't, because of the stance that they've taken. But a couple of the leaders are Black. And I said it, out loud, you're Black, okay? So people can see who you are. It's like, oh my goodness. So that's how I clean that up. Mm.
Well, Deborah, I want to say a heartfelt thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your grandfather's story and having this conversation about legacy, because legacy is such an important part of everybody's life, whether or not they want to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So any parting, okay, so everybody can go to the 30 Ways to Make Money, and I will, because of the type of link it is, I will go back after this and put it into the description so you'll have that below. But any last comments before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you so much for all that you do, Helen, because you are so detailed. That's another reason I couldn't do it, is that I'm not that detailed where you're willing to pick and be that detective. And thank you for the work that you do so that for those who really want to know, they have a way of finding out. And that is important because all of us have to be able to live the way that we live. And so I thank you for that. And of course, thank you for having me on your show. And thank you for being my friend.
Well, I absolutely love and adore you. And for those that don't know, Deborah, I call her Sunshine because she has this beautiful personality, and and as you can see, she's got that gorgeous smile. And every time I see her on a Zoom call, she just brings a whole bunch of sunshine into my day. So that's why I call her Sunshine. So if you ever hear me call out Sunshine to anybody, you know that Deborah's online. So Deborah, thank you again. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today and watching our episode on legacy and podcast number 1106. I still can't believe I've done over 3 years.
Okay. It's in the can.
I just feel like I'm getting started. So we will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. We have no guests tomorrow. It's just going to be me, but that's okay. I can handle it. But we do have a guest coming up on Friday who is going to be awesome. And we will let you in on that one on Friday morning. So stay tuned for that. And without further ado, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Deborah, thank you again, my friend. I love you. I adore you. And I appreciate you taking the time out to come in today. And everybody else have a super fantastic sparkling evening. And we will catch you guys tomorrow. Hei konera.